disagree. And what that means, and what you heard yesterday, is social is now bigger than email, not just in the number of people who use social, but the time spent online. And the number of social platforms continue to grow. The networks around the world are continuing to grow and consolidate. And there's something that I call the Facebook, YouTube smackdown. So if you take a look at this chart and you take a look at the total volume of time spent globally, what you'll see is Facebook and YouTube are taking more and more of their time online at the cost of Google and MSN, and to a smaller extent, Yahoo. So if we go to the portals, what we're seeing is they're jockeying for position, and it comes down to two battlegrounds. On the left, my left, which would be your left as well, good. It's the platform plays and the walled gardens. So it's Apple, okay, with its iOS, the iPad and the iPhone, Google with Android and Open Social, Facebook with Facebook Connect, and Microsoft with 7. On the other side, the traditional platform plays, the traditional content plays, AOL and Yahoo. AOL going back to its content roots, and Yahoo really trying to integrate to be your home online. So with Yahoo, the whole focus on being a content and lifestyle brand, and really conceding defeat in search by partnering with Bing. Now, of course, that's except here in Japan, where Yahoo is the dominant player across lifestyle, content, and search. Okay? AOL, really trying to get out there and be a social network with an acquisition that they later sold for nickels on the dollar, pushing heavily now into patch and global, coming down to grassroots local, really making themselves the home locally for so many of us. We go to the publishers, it's kind of the end of the platform barriers and platform-centric revenue models. And there's a game-changing convergence platform, the iPad and the other pad computers that are coming out here. So this is really a challenge here in the US and around the world here in Japan, where how do we think about publishing, whether it's print, magazines, whether it's DVDs, whether it's books, whether it's magazines, as more and more publishers migrate into new channels. Obviously, one of the big game changers is the iPad, with over 3 million sold in its first quarter. And that change is going to continue to amplify with the new Android, BlackBerry, Win 7, and Palm OS tablets rushing to market. Search. I love that search continues to just grow and grow. And I think we saw a couple magazine covers from Fortune where they were wondering whether Google was dead because they were only growing at 13%. I don't know, 13% is pretty good. So Google has a new competitor of sorts in Bing. Bing is small, but with the Yahoo deal, obviously becoming more of a player. And in affiliate and lead gen, continuing to change with the digital industry. This is an area that's one of the biggest growth worldwide. It's at 34% per annum. Huge, 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 also here in Japan. And what's interesting about affiliate is the socialization and mobilization of affiliate. They're changing as the industry changes and as consumers change. And it's really about Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and many ways to acquire those leads and convert them. Video is everywhere, as I'm sure you're all aware. And what we see in every country we go to is free, niche, fast trumps quality. Okay? So it's the user-generated free versus the premium paid. Oops. And what we see increasingly is TV is going everywhere. I I was flying here, and I saw people watching TV on their phones on the plane. Okay, we watch TV on the iPad. It's diversifying, and it's a challenge for the big networks here in Japan, as well as in other parts of the world. How do you monetize your content as it spreads? Mobile and digital out of home, I think we see a global liftoff, and more smartphones will be purchased in 2012 than computers. More web access through mobile, again, in the next couple of years, and that's already the case here in Japan and many other markets. For many people, their only experience of the web will be mobile. And for all the agency people and brands in the room, all the designers and creatives, think about how are you going to convey a brand experience through that small screen and that limited user interface. And more mobile devices, where we're going to have to figure out how to deliver our brand messages, our marketing, and our creative into a multiplicity of platforms. Ultimately, I think most people will agree, it's going to come down to Apple versus Google, the battle to dominate mobile. Now, we have other players in this market, obviously, but there are two platforms going head to head, and one cannot underestimate the role of the developer in this, because the more the developers create apps for one platform or the other, the more utility a consumer or a business person has. As we get near the end of the presentation, I think you saw from Google yesterday, it's more and more about data and insights. And ultimately, as we heard from Martin yesterday morning, it's that interactivity and that measurability. So with data and insights, it's all about more and more from online, offline, and increasingly data optimization. So that's what we're seeing around the globe. I think we have a great day for you today. And I'm going to take a moment and get ready to introduce you to. So I wanted to start with a comment about last night's networking party. How many people enjoyed that? Totally, right? Great party, I could tell. Nobody wanted to go home, and it was like 9 o'clock. So many thanks to Microsoft Advertising for hosting that for us. Today we have a really astonishingly great panel to start the morning with. Carolyn Everson, the Corporate Vice President, Global Advertising, Sales, and Trade Marketing for Microsoft, will sit down with a couple of peers to talk about how consumer evolution is changing advertising. Caroline has a pretty big brief. She's responsible for all of Microsoft's advertising business across Bing, MSN, Windows Live, mobile, gaming, Atlas, and the Microsoft Media Network. She's an she's an advertising industry veteran, most recently hailing from MTV Networks, and she began her career with digital online publications. Okay? She is going to be with a panel talking about this consumer evolution, and no one is better, I think, to start us off this morning. So would everybody please join me in welcoming Caroline to the stage.
Good morning. Thank you all for coming this morning. I am looking forward to sharing with you a presentation about the advertising industry and influence of the consumer revolution. A little introduction about myself. As I said, my name is Carolyn Everson. I have been in the media and advertising industry for 17 years. Most recently with MTV Networks and Nickelodeon. I've worked for the Walt Disney Company, Zagat Survey, and other digital publications like 17 Magazine, New York Magazine, and Modern Bride. All of those years, I've learned the importance of three things. Number one, the importance of content. Number two, the importance of creativity. And number three, the importance of brand. I have brought those three things to Microsoft, where I joined 4 months ago to take on the leadership role of the Global Ad Sales Division, our strategy and trade marketing unit. I'm also a mom of twin girls who are turning 8 next week. They are on the way to come to China and will meet me in Shanghai on Sunday, which I'm very excited about with my husband for their first visit. This is my first visit to Tokyo, so I'm very thrilled to be here today, and I thank you for your attention. People have asked me what I thought about the industry and where we are in terms of digital marketing, and I use the image of a pendulum. On one side of the pendulum is where creativity, TV, print, where brands have become comfortable, where they have been for decades. On the other side of the pendulum is what we've known: data, digitally oriented companies, more technology-driven solutions. And so a lot of people ask, well, where is Microsoft and where is the industry these days? I think of ourselves as right in the middle. We need to bring brands to life, make sure that consumers continue to have a love affair with brands, and yet we need to use data and technology to be really smart to get the right message at the right time to the right audience. The truth is, marketing can actually work a lot better now, given all of the access we have to data and targeting technology. But we must never forget the basics that we've all learned in marketing. That consumers love creativity and content. They expect it to be relevant. They expect it to be engaging, now more than ever. When people have asked about what is Microsoft doing in regards to the creativity space, I wanted to share with you some examples of the work that we've done. Believe it or not, about 10 years ago, we set up a group called the Global Creative Solutions Team. They have worked on hundreds of campaigns for brands. What they do is they start from the very beginning and they ideate with the brand and think about the campaign and how to bring it to life creatively on our platforms and our competitors' platforms. And they've done some incredible work. What I'm about to show you is a campaign that we're working on for Ford Motor Company and the launch of the Fiesta. Ford has become a very important global partner for Microsoft. We put the technology in their car. We think about their marketing campaign globally. And what has been great is they've asked us to think outside the walls of a traditional display unit. I've been very public recently about the need to innovate display advertising. When I was in digital 10 years ago, we were still using the same banner ads that we're using today. And so this example that I'm about to show you shows how to think outside the lines, outside the box, and let the creativity really take off with imagination. Today. When a lot of people have asked, why aren't more brands spending in digital? In Japan, I believe the number is around 10% of overall spend in digital. In Europe, the average is 15% of budgets. And yet consumers are spending an inordinate amount of time in digital. And so why hasn't the money moved? And I have two answers for that. Number one, we need to create an incredibly creative environment for brands to be comfortable. That's an example where a company like Ford, who has spent the majority of their money in TV and in print, suddenly feels really good about their digital execution. And the second thing I would say, it's not about digital versus TV. At MTV Networks, where I was for 7 years, we showed how well those two mediums work together. And at Microsoft, all of our research around multi-screen shows that when you put a brand message in an environment, whether it be Xbox, on the mobile device, on MSN, on the television, they actually work to increase brand engagement, brand awareness, and all the metrics that Dynamic Logic covers. So actually, the more the message is on multi-screens, the more impactful it can be. So what does this all mean for a marketer? We know the future of technology is bright, and it is fabulous to be a consumer these days. Consumers are in control in ways that they've never been before. And they have technology and choice at their fingertips. But is this good for marketers? And how do marketers feel about this? Today I'm going to talk about 3 trends that I think are affecting the way marketers need to think about this landscape. The real-time web, the portability of content, and the natural user interface. What you see behind me is a real-time Twitter feed of conversations that are happening in Tokyo as this presentation is going. Marketers have access to conversations that are happening real-time about their brands. And that means marketers need to engage in a dialogue with brands. No longer is it acceptable to push a message to a consumer and hope that it resonates. Marketers need to be involved and create environments where consumers can contribute to the conversation. They are eager to do so. They also expect a lot from brands. They expect you to be ready to respond 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The consumer is always on, the real-time web is always on, and therefore brands need to always be on. There's been a lot of discussion around social and how important it is. And I am a very big believer in the value of social in the overall marketing ecosystem. And so what is the value of a fan? Oreo cookie has 9 million fans, Coca-Cola 11 million and counting. It's an incredible, rich database of people and consumers that have self-selected and said, I'm interested in being part of your brand. But the best part for brands is not just when they get a number of fans, but when those fans turn into what I call a fanatic. Somebody that wants to contribute content and comments and really take the word of mouth that we were used to before digital and spread the message about the brand. And it's finding out who your fanatics are that really can move the needle on your business, not just your fans. Using data to understand how often those fans are communicating with you. How often are they interacting with you? These are the people that are most important. We just did a study with Kirah. It was a global retail study. And what we thought we would look at is what has been the impact of the recession, the real-time web, and all the access to information that consumers have. Are they shopping differently? Are they thinking about things differently when they go to the store? And what we found is they absolutely are. They have access to information at their fingertips. They can do price comparison. They can look at consumer reviews, all at their fingertips, which affects their decisions in a retail environment. We think of social then as not just a destination, as somewhere where you need to go to or send your consumers to, but as a feature of everything that we do. I'm going to talk about Xbox Connect, and I hope you all have a chance to do the demo at the Microsoft Advertising Experience Center. What you'll see, even in Connect, is social is woven into that experience. There are photos taken experience in your car, on your phone, on all of the devices that we have. It almost is like spell check. When spell check came out and it was on all of the different applications, it's that critical to be woven in as a feature. The second trend that I wanted to talk about is the portability of content. And what does that mean for marketers? If you look at this slide, what has happened is content that is available not only on the television screen, consumers believe it should be available across all of their devices. And it needs to be seamless for the consumer. They expect this. We just launched about 6 weeks ago MSN Senkai News. It's the #1 news site now in Japan, with over 200,000 downloads and users in the first 6 weeks. And one of the reasons we believe is that we have made it easy for consumers to consume news across these devices. And so what does this mean for advertisers? Well, if consumers are expecting a seamless experience, and Microsoft and others are investing billions in cloud infrastructure to make this transparent for the consumer, so that they can pick up a movie that they may have been watching on their television screen, on their mobile device, or if they're playing Connect in their living room, they can press pause and get that game right on their mobile phone. That's what consumers are expecting, but they're also expecting the advertising to move with the content across those screens. They do not expect one brand to sponsor a piece of content on TV and a competitive brand to sponsor it in another platform. They expect advertising and content to be together and to move seamlessly across these screens. What's more important is that the advertising be customized for each device. And this slide is actually a little misleading because it looks like the same advertisement across these devices. We have to think about how consumers use each of these devices. So I'll use the example of shopping for an automobile. If I am looking for an automobile, what I might do on my mobile phone is very different than what I'm going to do if I'm passively watching the television screen. I might want to know where the local dealer is. I might want to look up price comparisons. I might want to look up consumer reviews on my mobile device. And yet, when I'm watching television, I might want a 30-second or 60-second spot to show me the benefits and features of the car. And then when I'm on the PC, I want to have access to go deep into the information, to customize my car, to change the color, to price out the different features I may be interested in. And so marketers need to think about customizing their content depending on which platform they're going to be showing up on. Very important. The last trend I'm going to talk about is the natural user interface. And this is going beyond touch. This is whether it be voice activated, touch activated, or in the case of Connect, actually human activated through a camera. So I really encourage you to go and test out Connect. There's a little camera that sits on top of the Xbox that measures your body. And as you move your body motions without using any controller, you interact with the device. It's essentially taking technology and getting rid of the barrier that exists between consumers and technology and allowing consumers to interact with it. And we're very excited about it. It actually launches here in Japan on November 20th in time for the holiday season. Take a look.
Multi-screen campaign concept really takes this concept of natural user interface, with gestures, sight,
consumers. Using technology combined with Microsoft Pivot makes for a very natural and engaging way to be able to explore the One of the things that's really important to us on Xbox is this concept of value exchange. We want to make sure that we're rewarding consumers for their time and attention. Select U.S. markets starting in November, and it's a completely new and innovative approach to the vehicle.
So what you just saw was a number of different technologies. I don't think that video brought Connect to life the way it will if you go and actually demo it. But what you saw there was the use of all of the different platforms in very specific ways. The mobile device, the PC experience, our Surface table, which will be available at local dealers for Chevrolet, and of course the Connect Joyride game. It is now my pleasure, before I summarize, I will be bringing up a couple of guests who join me, but just to summarize the 3 points that I mentioned. Number one, you should expect more devices available from this new natural user interface. Connect is just the beginning of what we are going to be rolling out in terms of controllerless interaction with technology. Number two, the cloud and richer computing devices and the availability of 3G bandwidth is going to create more content that goes across devices for consumers and advertisers. And social will continue to be a very important part of the digital media landscape. It will actually help us discover the availability of media and will be really increasingly important in what we do with search. Now it is my pleasure to introduce Kirah. She is an innovation and design anthropologist who recently came back to Microsoft. She lives in Norway, and she has an incredible job of spending all her time understanding what consumers are doing today. So welcome, Anna. Good morning. So Anna, you just saw a lot of new technology and some of the trends we're seeing. Can you tell us what you're thinking about consumers these days and how they think about marketing?
Yes, I can. I think the most important thing is understanding trends. These are global trends. We're not talking about a trend in Europe or Japan or it, but very globally. The world is changing so rapidly. We are global today. And because of that, people are responding to these changes. And one of the most important is understanding, and you mentioned back to basics in terms of marketing and sales and advertising, but one of the other things is people are also searching back to basics as a trend. And they search to connect the past, the present, with the future. And in that, advertising also has to think, how do we relate to the emotions that people have? And the most important thing we do is understand people from their perspective, what's important to them, and bring that alive in the way we advertise.
So Anna, you have a slide here. The most important thing you learned was in kindergarten.
That's correct.
What does that mean?
Well, as you can see, I didn't grow up in the United States. I am American. I grew up in Taiwan, in Japan, and also in China. And one of the first things I learned as a child was to make friends. I had to understand the children from their perspective and not my own. And this translates into the work I do for companies. And it's very, very important for companies to understand the people they serve. What's meaningful and relevant to people is crucial to the ability to sell and produce products and services that meet the needs and the relevancy of everyday people in their everyday lives.
So Anna, when I was speaking at advertising in New York, I said that companies make products
want out in their advertising, and as you will be talking about later.
Absolutely. One other question before I bring our guests up, Nicole at Unilever. Technology. Are consumers scared of it these days? Do they embrace it? Do they even think about it, or is it just part of their everyday lives?
It's all of the above. I think fear is not the issue. I think fear is more for this older generation that may not understand what technology is. It's sort of like a car. You know, there aren't that many people that are interested in what's underneath the hood. They're not looking at the motor and understanding that. They just want to turn on the TV and have it work. And that's very much what people think about technology today. Your mobile phone works. Your computer works. But this transformation, culture, we talk about how technology changes cultures, but we also need to include that culture transforms technology, and people today are more empowered than ever before because of the digital world we live in. And this empowerment pushes they push their needs and desires and expect a dialogue with the companies and the brands that they enjoy.
Great. I think we should bring up some guests, if I may. If I could, I would like to invite Ebata-san from Coca-Cola, the Director of Internet Marketing, iMarketing, and New Business, and Victor from Unilever, who's the Vice President of Marketing Northeast Asia. So welcome.
Because of that, I started my own company called District 3 in 1996 and ran it through 2005. Then I joined Coca-Cola for this exciting opportunity to start up their internet marketing arm here. Since then, I've been on 3 Adtech. First one was Adtech Tokio last year. I was on 2 panels. One was on mobile marketing. The second one was on triple media, cross-media utilization. And then I was also invited to Adtech San Francisco this April to speak about the Japanese mobile market, which I think is leading the world right now. And yesterday I spoke on social media, and today I'm going to assist Carolyn on her speech.
Thank you. And Victor.
Good morning. This is my self-introduction. You might think it's a line of access to my blog, which I don't have, or Twitter, but it's actually my lifeline. And the line itself represents my highs and lows in my life. So you can see that it starts when I was in my mother's stomach, and I was very happy, and then I was born, and then my life started to go up and down. Many of the peaks are my girlfriends, and many of the lows are also my girlfriends. You can see that in the last part of the child is where I'm very happily with a family and 2 kids, and it's very stable and very high. I'm half Japanese, half Mexican. I was born in Mexico, and I grew up in Belgium, in Brussels. I went to university in England, and I joined Unilever, in the UK. And I have been with Unilever since then, in various different marketing functions, local, regional, global, and also being very lucky to travel with them and experience a lot of different marketing. I don't know if you know about Unilever, but Unilever is a very big company. It's the world's second largest advertiser. We have a variety of brands, from
great marketing campaigns. There's a lot of detail to this that's sort of confidential, so I can't really elaborate into it, but that's sort of the general concept. To build, and I think yesterday I thought the connectedness is excellent, because you didn't have to think of anything, any devices. Your device controls the game, and that's sort of the what we use to develop our marketing program.
Great. Victor, what are your thoughts about the pendulum and art and science?
Yeah, I think it's very, very relevant. The creativity and the technology coming together is really key. I think the real essence of it is, as you were talking about, is about consumers. So both of them coming together, and the consumer understanding and knowing exactly what to do to entertain your consumer or to get them to have a different brand experience is really key. And both creativity and technology will come together and deliver a fantastic experience. So it's very relevant. I think it's very key to developing good digital campaigns.
Now, you recently did a promotion with apps, and it was really successful. You took your budget out of TV, and you challenged your team to do something unique and digital to combine really the science and the creativity. Could you share a little bit about that?
Yes, so we were launching a body wash, and we were trying to find a way to actually create a lot of impact and actually engage with our consumer. Now, our consumer is young men, and we know that most Japanese bathe at night, and we wanted to create a channel, a navigation channel, where people who are men could actually access information about showering at night. And so therefore we created this site called the Shower Navi, and within that we created a lot of content. One of the main events in the content, and we will continue moving forward, was to create a mix between a real live event and then use technology for consumers to participate. The live event was streamed through Ustream, and then the consumer could instantly interact with Twitter. And by having that sort of self-fulfilled, we actually really work on the experience for the consumer to actually maximize the brand impact and the awareness of the brand.
I actually love these shoes.
Excellent. Now let me ask Coca-Cola. Not only Coca-Cola, but I know Coca-Cola has a terrific framework around paid, owned, and earned, which are 3 words that come up in every client meeting I have. Can you share with us a little bit about how you're thinking about those 3 areas in your marketing plans?
The old media is sort of like anything that you own, and we try to connect the owned and paid and share your media. For example, increasingly, this is not a product, but we increasingly try to put more guidance to our own website or our social or the earned media on our products, which is our own media. Also, from own media, our Coca-Cola Park, we developed Coca-Cola Park, so we sell advertisements. So we're sort of own media plus paid media. And this year, we're trying to put more community aspect onto our own media, so to integrate those 3 media in our own media and expand in all 3 directions. And we do a lot of things individually, but I think we need a connection to really effectively do the voice campaign, and we try to build that through the website.
Victor, how do you think about paid, owned, and earned
you're focused on versus an automobile purchase? Because I think that would be important for the audience to hear. Either both of you, I'd love to hear from. Yes.
I think that the type of consumer and the category are extremely important to consider in terms of how you're going to do your digital campaign. So, for example, we have products that range from young men to mothers with children to old women. And we know that the use of the internet is very different by those groups. But we also know that the information or the things that they need are very different. So conversely, if you're looking for a car, you're looking for lots of information before you make the purchase, and then you go into the car. On a shampoo, you will not look for shampoo oil. Unless you're a real fanatic, you will not look for lots of information about shampoo. So the way we have to market there will be much more about the brand experience or look at the theme of that experience. Alternatively, for example, on skincare, we know that a very large proportion of the market is actually not in drugstores, but actually online and also by mail order. And even older consumers actually go to the markets in that area. So the experience and the information that you have to provide to consumers will be very different in that area as well.
Yes, and to this point, the frequency of purchase of product is very important for us because you don't buy a car 5 times a day, but we have like 5 or 6 times a day for consumers to consider to buy a product. So we do like to have heavy branding, but also we like to frequently contact with the consumer and frequently remind them of our product, and especially closer to the point of purchase to influence their product. So your point on mobility of content is going to be very important for products like Coca-Cola, where we can reach the consumers every day when they're making their purchase decisions.
I'm glad you brought up mobile, because I know how important that is to this marketplace in particular, and actually in all of Asia. Can you talk a little bit about how you're thinking about advertising and marketing in the mobile environment? Do you think it will be traditional display, or video, or search-based, or all of the above?
Very difficult, but what we try to do is that we don't just have a PC website for Coca-Cola. As I said, we're trying to reach the consumers at the point of purchase. So we do everything that we do on PC, and vice versa. We try to do that. Some things there are limitations on technology, but we try to do the same experience. However, it's the same idea, but the expression is different by things. So you have to have a larger photo for mobile because it's going to be too small. So the format is a little bit different, but we try to have the same experience. The device is sort of like a medium and connection to our site or our experience. So we try to give the same experience wherever they come from. That's what we're trying to cook and experiment.
I think in our area, I think the access example is a good one. For example, the interface that we were having on the PC and the live event, and then what we had on the mobile were actually different. So more Twitter on the mobile, so they could really instantly react to whatever questions were being asked in the live event. Whereas on the screen in the computer was different. And I think, again, just going back to the consumer, going back to the idea, will be really dependent on how you use each of the different access of the screen. And I think it's a really sort of exciting area because it's open to a lot of creativity, a lot of new ideas as to how to interlink live, real-time visuals, communication, interaction, and the more we get these mobile devices, it will just make everything much more.
And how do you see mobile affecting consumers these days? It has to be one of the things that you, as you're studying what consumers do, you must see them doing all sorts of things on their mobile devices.
They definitely do, and I did a study in Japan
women in particular watching television on their mobile phones. So that's a wake-up call for advertising and what's going on. You need to be watching the people in your own context of what's actually happening. Mobile is huge. It's really about taking the experience with you as you go through your day. And I think you will see that there are some dramatic changes in technology as well. I call it Big Sister, which is benevolent technology, good technology that makes your life easier as a consumer. So in the Coca example, or in the shampoo example, is when you're in the store, I think that the advertising and what happens, and based on presence, knowing where the person is, will also start showing how you can advertise right then and there, right at the time of purchase, to make it a meaningful experience to the person who's trying to make a choice.
Now, one of the things that has to happen in all of these environments is that the advertising can't be viewed as intrusive. It needs to be complementary to the consumer experience. How do you feel about that? And how do you manage hearing all the different proposals, making sure that the advertising is relevant and engaging and not intrusive?
Well, one thing we did in the Beijing Olympics and the recent Olympics as well is to try to utilize the three screens, TV, PC, and mobile. So we set the sites that said the best site to watch during the Olympic Games. So we want people to watch TV and then find our brand and communicate. And so we're not intrusive, we're trying to be a connecting medium for consumers on a passionate event that we sponsor. So that sort of connection will be very relevant, and we had very high brand score rises during that campaign because we were adding very much value to what people like already. So I think those kind of things, and we're trying to develop that in gaming as well. So whatever the passion point we'll have, we try to emphasize that we're helping them to enjoy that more.
For us, as I mentioned, we're not sort of like all that sophisticated, so we're really exploring but I think instinctively we're taking an approach that says, TV ad does not necessarily have to go on each of the screens. So yes, we have a web where people can view the ad, but it's not the must that it must happen. Actually, if you have an internet page or a home page, the experience has to be very, very different to what they're telling people on the television. And so by taking that approach, it's equal the same in a live event and also on mobile. By taking that approach, what we're finding is that we're using each of the elements correctly or as best we can to actually make the experience better and more relevant to the consumer. Always trying to think about what will be exciting in that element and all that media.
Great. I'm going to wrap it up. First of all, I would like to thank my guests today. I appreciate you joining me up on the stage. And just to summarize, I hope what you heard, this entire presentation and panel really was about the consumer and the importance of the consumer in everything that we do, whether it be the content we create for them, the way we market to them, the way we have a dialogue with them, and really bringing them into the process. And so hopefully you took away not only the importance of the consumer, but also the importance of how creativity and technology work together. I want you to know how committed we are to this market at Microsoft, and I'm personally very committed to making sure that we roll out the products and have a very successful advertising platform for our marketing partners here. My email information is here. There is a website you can stay connected to any of our events and news, and I would encourage you, if you haven't already, to go try Connect in the Experience Center. And I thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
We have a little, if you guys can stay here for 1 second. We have a couple of minutes while we're changing over computers, so we have a few more volunteers from the audience. So, Marcus, you two guys at the front, can you come and help? I'm going to start pointing at people. You're in trouble.